All right, Ben, thank you for joining me. Where can people find your stuff?
Well, they can find me at IPC Podcast on social media. That's where the IPC can be found. You can also find me at the SWU and at Culture Slate. Those are my other two little projects. And you can find me at Ben Hart with no E if you want to, for some reason, get my thoughts in text form in your feeds.
All right, nice. Go ahead and check out those podcasts, listeners. And as for my plugs, you can find me at Steven Schinder on Instagram and Twitter. I'm Steven Schinder Storytelling on Facebook. You can also find info on my novel, Lemons in My Brain, at stevenschinder.com. It's also on Amazon. So if you're into fantasy, horror, and comedy, you could check that out. And if you want to email the podcast, email delayedreplaypodcast@gmail.com. So far, there have been no emails, so be a pal and let us know how we've done on our coverage of all these movies and games, that one comic book episode. So yeah, we can read your thoughts on the show. All right, without further delay, have a good day. All right, now for final thoughts and score out of 10 for Tenet. No,
Try to keep it going there. Try to.
Yeah, in case you haven't figured out, listeners, that was just a little bit playing off of the inversion thing that happened in Tenet. So
yeah, we fooled you. We got you. But yeah, it's this movie's got into our brains.
So yeah, I guess I should introduce my guest properly. So just give me a sec. I don't know how well this will sound, but
oh no. Yes.
Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
Star Wars rules. This is momentous. This is exciting. Why, hello there, Ben.
Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
He is the founder of the Star Wars Underworld, Mr. Ben Hart.
How's it going, everybody?
Man.
That thing is going to follow me everywhere I go for the rest of my life. I swear to God.
Yeah, I mean, at least there's consolation knowing that if you ever lose all your Twitter followers, that will still follow you. So
it's never going away. And I'm not complaining. All right, I'm not complaining.
So yeah, I don't know how that sounded on your end, but I could always fix it in post. I might even play it in reverse at the end or something just for the heck of it.
Just to keep it going, just to keep the joke going.
Yeah, so yeah, my guest on this episode is Ben Hart from the Star Wars Underworld podcast and the Intergalactic Peace Coalition podcast. How's it going?
It's going great. I'm happy and thrilled to be on this podcast finally. I've heard a lot about it. I've heard a lot of people on it and had some friends I knew I had, show up on here. I'm like, oh, I want in on that. So I've been itching to be on here and doing this with you, and so I'm very thrilled to talk about this movie and that we're going to talk about. And yeah, it's going to be a good time.
Yeah, I listened to that Hype Function episode that you and Star Raptor were on, where you guys and Jeff talked about delayed replay, and you were listing off a couple topics that had been done on this podcast, and you said something to the effect of, I think they've done Tenet, but it turns out hadn't done that one yet, but the inversion thing. So we did it.
Just timey-wimey stuff. You never know.
This is such a weird episode. But
well, this is a weird movie, all right? So, I mean, it just goes hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean, with Christopher Nolan, I feel like if he's doing something outside of superhero stuff, it's reasonable to expect something that's a bit confusing. Maybe some people would even think it's pretentious or something, but I feel like he does do his research. And even if you don't understand what's going on, it's sometimes mesmerizing to watch how this stuff is filmed.
Yeah, and it's not in Christopher Nolan's handbook to do like something that's just normal to do. Like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna make a movie. It's just normal. It just has a beginning, a middle, and end, and it just has normal characters in it. Like Christopher Nolan is like has the bar set really, really high with like just not just quality, but like something you've never seen before.
Yeah, he loves playing with time. Like, I know there's that movie Memento, which ironically I can't remember much of, but like it would show what was going on with the main character in the present, and then like keep on showing flashbacks, and like it might have been reverse order, I can't remember, but yeah, there's that.
Wow.
And like you see him slowing down time in places in Inception, and there's also time related stuff in Interstellar. So
Right.
yeah, he loves having a good time with time.
Good time with time, and it's a good time watching it.
Yeah, so we watched Tenet last weekend. It just came out, and yeah, he had like a tight lid on a lot of stuff in this movie.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I just love the comments like for the trailer where people are like, "What's this movie about?" And like the answer is yes. Like nobody knew.
just go with it. Just go with it because we don't know what's going on. But yeah, I'm glad to finally see this movie. Back when I saw the trailer for the first time, actually, backtracking here just for a second, for The Rise of Skywalker, they played a huge clip in front from Tenet, in front, like the whole opera house scene where they're going to get the guy, and there's a whole thing that happens. That whole scene was in front of Rise of Skywalker. And I saw The Rise of Skywalker twice in the same theater, the Chinese theater in California, and they played it both times there. So I was very familiar with that scene by the time I got to actually see the movie.
Oh wow, the Tenet trailer. Maybe I saw it in front of like a couple other things that came out this year, but
Right.
for a little while I knew of it. I knew it was coming, but I wasn't really sure what it was about. I don't think anyone did. But yeah, like it was apparently a surprise that like it wasn't about time travel in the strict sense. You know, it was about
Right.
inversion. But yeah, I guess we'll just get right into it. So
Right.
the main character is John David Washington's character. I feel like Nolan didn't really care much about like saying the actual names of some of these characters throughout the movie, because it's like, who would even remember, you know?
Right. Just like, you just like, oh, that's John David Washington, the guy that he played. I don't remember his name. I don't know if they even said his name. But, he was a good character. I liked him. He was interesting.
Yeah, they do give him a code name, though, because, like, he's an operative, and, like, his code name in this, I got a good laugh out of this, was Art Vandelay. So, like,
I perked up in the theater. I'm like, oh God, they went there. Like, they're like, this is like Seinfeld reference. Like, and I knowing I was going to do this with you, I'm like, oh my God, Steven's going to love this.
yeah, because, like, the actor's last name is Washington, so I guess, like, George Washington, and like, well, I think George, like the character from Seinfeld, is the first thing that comes to mind. I don't know about you, but
right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So maybe Nolan is a fellow Seinfeld fan as well.
Maybe. Oh, it's so good.
Art Vandelay goes through this like test that results in his death, and he's revived. And Kenneth Branagh's character, who is a Russian oligarch. He goes by the codename Dr. Mo Palin, which, like, I later realized was, like, an anagram of the word palindrome, which is, like, a word that's the same forwards and backwards. It's just like Tenet. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah. I did. I think I did catch. They're definitely playing with the whole, like, in forwards of time, obviously Tenet being the thing, and then the fact that his character has so much going on with Tenet and, time travel and stuff like that is crazy.
Right. So, yeah, he tells Vandelay about Tenet and basically how they're trying to prevent World War III. And what did you think of these, like, training sequences where they show him how the gun, like, catches the bullet rather than like shooting a bullet?
Yeah, I'm glad they took time to actually like try to explain it, because this isn't your granddaddy's time travel. This isn't even really time travel in the classic sense. This is, straight up like time inversion, like, and obviously John David Washington's character has this kind of ability that he's given to do these certain things and, kind of walk into a room and go, okay, stuff's gonna happen, or where he catches bullets and stuff like that, and see these things happening. And it's crazy. And they do a great job in the kind of training sequences of like introducing it to him, introducing it to the other characters, so that you're not trying to figure things out as it goes. Because I think it gets really wacky when you get to the actual scenes later, and you're, watching, John David Washington, jump off of roofs and do all kinds of stuff and go over buildings. Like, it's insane. But you're kind of given the gist of it.
Yeah, it did get kind of drowned in techno babble, but from what I gathered, like the way that their technology worked was that they'd use these batteries that are like onion powered. Like they somehow figured out how to like synthesize onions into like an energy source that can like invert things. And so
Right.
yeah, they put those in like the guns and the gadgets and stuff. I thought it was really weird, but I was like, you know what, I'm here for it.
Yeah, it's crazy how, like, I mean, at one point he like uses a stapler as a weapon and is like throwing it back and forth. It's just the whole, concept of this and how they're able to, and there's like a whole football game that like they goes into it and it's being played in reverse. Like, that blew my mind.
Yeah, and already there are memes online of like, people like Photoshop Bane into the football field, and it's that scene from Dark Knight Rises.
Exactly. Oh, I knew that was going to be a meme as soon as I saw it.
Yeah, and like even the word inversion has become like the new Inception. Like it's become such a meme now thanks to this movie. And it seems like Michael Caine's character could possibly be the same one from Inception. Like there's a weird moment where he's like, I had a son-in-law who had dreams. And then someone's like, what happened to him? And then they like get interrupted and like move on to like the next thing. Like don't want to like resolve what happened in Inception.
Yeah, yeah, he's just there every time. If Christopher Nolan's into it, Michael Caine's going to be there. And the fact he just he shows up and he throws a beer in the guy's face, right at the start. I didn't expect it. I'm like, man, you're kind of an asshole. And, so that was unexpected, and it's like, this is not Michael Caine that I remember.
Yeah, it was definitely went against like our expectations of what we expect, which was kind of refreshing, but also bizarre to see.
Yeah.
But that's this whole movie in a nutshell, pretty much.
Right, and the whole thing with preventing World War III, because you see in the trailer where they're talking about, oh, I see there's something about World War III, we're trying to prevent it, and she's like, oh no, it's something worse. And how they get that, and like what is actually the worst thing, with them, trying to blow up the moon, which it's just insane. And, that would cause problems, obviously, getting rid of the moon. But, also like how it deals with the time travel aspect of it, and the position of the planets, and how they're able to use this technology, or even if it can be called technology, to kind of get their way.
Yeah, like if you blow up the moon, there's like catastrophic consequences because of like gravity and whatnot. And they even did this beautiful shot of like when they were explaining it, and it like shows like what could potentially happen, and it felt very much like the same cinematic schema, I think the word is, as like Interstellar. So I'm sure they had a lot of fun returning to that sort of thing, even just for that little sequence.
Right. Yeah. And like they have, the whole sequence where they kind of go through like what would happen. Like they kind of just let the sequence play out, and you have, chunks of the moon landing on Las Vegas. Like it's it's crazy. I mean, I love disaster movies, so I wasn't expecting that going into this movie. So I love the whole thing of like reversing it and then going back to the way it was. Just insane.
Yeah, in one of the Las Vegas casinos, you see someone like get all the three things on the slot machine, and they pretty much win the jackpot. But at that very moment, as they collect, like chunk of the moon crashes on them, which is pretty sad.
It's so I did not expect to see this much like dark humor in this movie. Like it was surprising, that one guy, you're like, oh my god, yeah, that would be me. That would me. Win the jackpot, the moon gets dropped on me.
Yeah, that would suck. Backtracking to like when they're briefly talking about World War III, they mention how it's like even worse than some of the battles of previous world wars, and they mention like all these different events, one of them being Dunkirk. And at that moment I thought to myself, Dunkirk, I see what you did there,
Christopher Nolan, you son of a bleep. Referencing yourself.
Yeah. It's pretty much building like his own cinematic universe.
Yeah, I don't know, this movie really plays with the whole like multiverse thing to the point where, I mean, and here's the thing, you had that one scene where Batman just shows up out of nowhere, and of course the whole theater like lost their minds when that happened, and I was like, what the hell is this? But they're going through all the multiverses and whatever, and like I think Christopher Nolan like is trying to create his own multiverse to where he can just say all of his movies are connected somehow.
Yeah, like we see the Christian Bale Batman, but we also see the Robert Pattinson Batman, and he briefly is like face to face with Pattinson's character in Tenet, who's called Neil, and it's like Neil looks at Batman and is like, there's something familiar about that chin, and it's obviously like this little advertisement for the Batman movie by Matt Reeves, which is kind of funny because you and I kind of talked about the news on that when I was on IPC a few months ago.
Right. Yeah, it's like I didn't expect the Batman to get referenced in this movie. It hasn't even come out yet. Tying in the Christopher Nolan, all the Batman connections that are in this movie, and then they just went full bore into it. Those sequences.
Yeah, I mean, with Crisis on Infinite Earths, I guess it's pretty much a given that every single DC universe is connected, but I didn't expect like just some random Warner Brothers movie to also be connected.
Yeah, it's I don't know where they're going with this. Obviously, they're setting up some sequels here. Tenets. There's so many possibilities just with the basic concept, but then throwing in all this other stuff and connecting to other films and the multiverse and where the characters end up in the end. You don't know where this could go, as far as, because they don't, fix it. Like they do, but they don't. And how do you survive on Earth and all this kind of stuff? And, what can you do? And do they go to another universe? And I don't know. It's crazy. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it because there's so much going on, especially in that third act. It's just insane.
Yeah, I have a point, but just real quick, have you ever seen that Rick and Morty episode, Interdimensional Cable?
I don't know if I have. I've seen quite a few episodes, but maybe not that one.
Okay, I'm gonna send you a clip from that after this. So
okay, all right,
yeah, because like the whole moon thing reminds me of something from that. It will be funny, and I'll put it in the show notes too.
Cool.
So yeah, like one of the heady things about this is like the revelation that Tenet, the organization, is trying to like undo their own mistakes that they make in the future. Because like, they have operatives that like shoot like enemies, like these villainous operatives and whatnot, but the whole conceit is that they realize that like all the people that they fought, like all that fighting is what escalated to like World War III and then the whole moon catastrophe. So that's why they're like trying to catch the bullets out of the people that they would have shot in the future.
they've like collected everyone's hair somehow, and they can like document everyone and can like stop people and like freeze them in time if they have like their DNA through their hair. That was pretty crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure people have like figured this all out and written up like diagrams or like the mechanics of all this, but in the moment it's like, wait, what's happening and how is it happening? You know?
Right. And this is a movie, I mean, Christopher Nolan, I mean, he's the guy. He's the guy that makes the movies that leave the theater going, what the hell was that? What was that? Because, I mean, in this movie, leaving on such a massive cliffhanger and just leaving you with all these questions. I mean, I like being able to actually talk about a movie and just, saying, oh, that was that. We're done with that. Like, this movie leaves up so many different, like, doors open in regards to, like, not just the future, but, like, what does this movie actually mean? What's it trying to say?
Right. And, like, yeah, for like, as much as they try to prevent catastrophe, it kind of plays into that whole, this is inevitable sort of thing. And it makes me wonder whether Interstellar could still happen in the future of this, or if they could potentially, like, prevent that, or maybe that's like in a different universe in this multiverse. But yeah, there's like all sorts of things going on.
Yeah.
What?
I like the commentary this movie has on like introducing this interesting time travel dynamic, but then what they're trying to prevent ultimately comes to pass. It's almost as if it's a commentary on like, okay, let's say we create time travel. We still can't stop time from moving forward. We can't really control time. We can move through it in different cases, but where we're going to end up is going to stay the same. And that's the whole thing with like Back to the Future, whatever, like trying to change your outcome, trying to fix things that are broken. And, I like that this movie seems to kind of set things straight as like, okay, this whole time manipulation and time dilation and things are moving back and forth and we're trying to fix this. Bad people are using time travel for bad things, but ultimately it's all going one place and you can't really stop it.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Terminator movies. Like, there are a couple of those movies that say Judgment Day is inevitable, but there are also a couple others that say it can be stopped. It's kind of a mess of a franchise, to be honest, but
yeah,
I enjoy that.
Yeah, and did you catch that Arnold cameo in there? I hadn't heard he'd been cast, but they just threw Arnold Schwarzenegger in there just at the last minute, which was crazy.
There was so much going on that I didn't even notice him. Where was he?
He was like, he showed up and he was wrapped in aluminum foil, which was just weird. Like, he just, he shows up and there's all this stuff happening and there's explosions and he shows up and then he just takes off the aluminum foil on his head and he's like, I'll be back. And I'm like, what is this movie?
Yeah, like, is he playing a Terminator or is he playing himself? What's even happening?
I mean, I understand like the whole like multiverse thing and they're going back and forth, but like, man, that was a little on the nose.
Man, I don't know how I missed that. I must have been like, because when you like watch a movie and like something happens and then you kind of space out trying to figure it out in your head. That was like a weird moment for me to space out during, I guess.
I don't think you missed much, but that's just me.
Yeah, I did like some of the gadgets that we saw in this movie. So like Denzel Smith plays an arms dealer, and one of the gadgets that he provides is this like, oh, I knew that you guys would get a chuckle out of this. Like, it's this watch that can like be aimed at people and then basically be used as a flamethrower. So like in my head, I was like, oh, it's a barbecue watch.
Yes, this is exactly what we're going to be talking about on the IPC episode for this movie, because what can you cook with that barbecue watch?
Yeah, it reminded me of that episode of the Clone Wars where they're on Geonosis, and it's like, even though the Geonosians are kind of like bugs, they're still people, so it still seems really intense,
Right. Yeah, and they're the whole like. You start like, oh, how would you say? Well, they're people, all right.
Yeah, I don't know how they got with showing that on Cartoon Network, but it's Cartoon Network, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just kind of reeling from this and trying to, kind of go through it. As you said, like, this is an intense movie. Real quick, I do want to mention the Ludwig Göransson score. This was, I think, another big win for him. I mean, he's had hits all through it. Maybe not my favorite of all of them. It was a very weird, and I know a lot of this about this movie is weird, but like, putting in, the circus sounds and all this kind of stuff, like, it was very almost off-putting in some places that I wasn't expecting that from this movie. Almost like the score didn't exactly match the picture sometimes.
Yeah, I could see how that'd be off-putting, but I guess I kind of like it when there's music that doesn't mesh with what's actually going on, albeit I'm used to that, and just just singular scenes are isolated from like the rest of the movie. I feel like Reservoir Dogs has done that, and Silence of the Lambs has done that. But I kind of got used to it here. And I mean, Ludwig, I agree, this is another win for him. He reinvented the Star Wars music language in The Mandalorian, and
Right.
also he's great for Black Panther and the Creed movies. So, yeah, I'm glad to see more of this guy's stuff.
Yeah, I think he absolutely nailed it. I think he could have another Oscar coming his way. Just saying.
Did you ever see the Disney Gallery episode where they talked about his music for The Mandalorian?
Yes, that was so great.
Yeah, it was cool seeing all the instruments that he'd use, but I also really loved his outfits. Like,
The guy knows, like, I guess that's when you get to be of his stature, like, you get to be an Oscar winner. Like, you can just dress however you want, because I know if I dressed like that, I would be a lunatic. I would look like a lunatic. But he just makes it look so good.
oh yeah, I would definitely feel comfortable dressing like that no matter what if I did have those outfits.
Oh my gosh, that guy's a character.
Yeah, it's like he jumped out of some show or something. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I'm trying to think what else I want to talk about this movie, because it's pretty astounding.
Well, I'll tell you
And
one thing. I really liked the fight scene between Washington's character and Aaron Taylor Johnson's character. Like, so Washington and Pattinson both team up against Aaron Taylor Johnson, and for a moment, it's almost like Batman versus Quicksilver / Kick-Ass, which was pretty funny.
yeah, I love the fact that, like, they keep killing each other. They're in this, like, time dilation chamber or whatever. So whenever they die, it just reverts back, and so they come back and they keep fighting. And so, like, it really, like, the first time you see him now, I'm like, holy crap, like, you've been following this guy the whole movie, and then he's dead now. And then it comes back, and it's like, oh, he's alive. Okay, this is interesting. And it just keeps going to the point where when one of them actually dies, you're taken off guard. Like, it doesn't even have an effect on you. You're like, whoa, okay, so this is taken for real this time.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of a sci-fi movie from like 2011 or something called Source Code with Jake Gyllenhaal. It kind of dealt with like going through the same scenario again, trying to find the source of a bombing before it happens. Maybe I'm not explaining it correctly, but yeah, it kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I remember when there was talk of doing a TV show based on source code, but that never happened. So
Yeah, I feel like that premise is very close to this. Like, there's a lot of that in here. So you could definitely, like, make some connections.
yeah, I also thought that Dimple Kapadia's character she had really great lines. She was talking about like the nature of time and like how consequences are like they can sometimes be these scars that are left on people even when you have dug the bullet out. It's like you still remember the experience of the pain, And yeah, like she had some really great action sequences, but I feel like they also gave her like some of the best dialogue in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and her, her whole thing about where, she's like gets like special powers later, which I didn't see coming, and she starts like using telephone poles as like weapons. Like she's that strong. Like that just tripped me out.
You just reminded me of Aaron Taylor Johnson in Age of Ultron. You didn't see that coming?
Surprised they didn't put that line in this movie. Oh, maybe they did. I just missed it. I don't know.
If only they could have caught the bullets out of him in Age of Ultron, right?
Yeah, he needs a Tenet rescue in Age of Ultron.
Yeah, I also liked the relationship between Kenneth Branagh's character, Dr. Mo Palin, and his wife. Like, they bicker sometimes, but not to a point where it's, like, super annoying. But you can also tell there's, like, a history there between them, and it feels believable to me.
Right, and I like their relationship because you don't know what their relationship is for a while. Like, they're husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend, whatever. But then it's like, does he want to kill her? Does he want to save her? And then, you're trying to figure out, and then he does kill her, and you're like, what the F? And then she comes back, and you're like, okay, what is even happening?
Yeah, I was not expecting them to kill off Elizabeth Debicki's character. That was, yeah, like when that happened, it was like, what? Why? It's like, I'm not sure about these story choices, but I'm also not sure about a lot of this movie.
Right, and it gets to the point where you're like, the deaths didn't even affect me because some characters would die and then come back, and then other ones would be like, oh, well, they're just going to come back, right? They're dead. Not exactly. Some of the characters just stay dead.
Yeah, it even gets to the point where, like, in that cliffhanger ending, when, like, the moon is crashing down, you see the characters gathered around, and the movie flickers between their living selves and how they would look when they're dead. It's like, wait, so which of these images are what's real for now? Like, who's alive and who's dead? I'm really confused.
Right, and that's why, like, I want a sequel. Like, are we going to get some definitive answers as to, like, what actually happened? And because I like the idea of, like, it looks like the moon just destroyed Earth and everyone died, but, like, did it? Are we dealing with an alternate reality where everyone survived? Is it, more time manipulation where they can reverse it somehow? And as you said, like, who actually died and who actually lived?
Yeah, like, the music is very poignant during that cliffhanger, but at the same time, I was feeling like a whole mixture of things. Like, from the music, I could tell that the story was ending, and I was like, I don't know if this should end right here.
Very, very interesting way to end it because, it's a very, like, it's fun, and, like, it's surprising, but it's also not the most satisfying because you're like, okay, I want this movie to keep going. I want to know.
Yeah, and it feels so much so quickly. Like, the end credits appear and it feels very abrupt, and it's like, wait, that's it? And I know that Nolan normally doesn't do, like, stuff after the credits, but I stayed in the theater hoping that maybe there was something after, and, like, some people were leaving the theater. And surely enough, as soon as the credits were finished, it reversed and basically played the whole movie, like, at the same speed, but backwards. And I looked at my phone, I looked at the time, and I was like, oh, wait, we're only halfway through however long they said this movie would be. And so...
and I heard, I didn't get a chance to say, but I heard that if you wait through that, you watch the movie backwards again, and then wait an extra hour, not just immediately after the credits, when the credits end and then wait an extra hour, there's something there. Now, I can't confirm that, but it sounds like a Christopher Nolan type of move.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I will say that the lights didn't come on right away once I decided to leave, or maybe like I left too quickly. But yeah, that was such a weird choice to like film a movie and then edit it and then show that whole thing in reverse all over again, thinking that lots of people are going to sit through that whole thing. And there were a few of us who did stay and sit through it just to out of curiosity, but it's like such a bold move, but also a divisive and controversial one.
Right. So yeah, that was I don't know what he was thinking there, but definitely made for some surprising stuff, because I expected the movie to be a lot longer and a lot more to it, but it really kind of came to a close pretty quickly, and then you're just watching the movie backwards again.
There's a part of me that kind of appreciates that on like a trollish level, like, oh, Christopher Nolan had fun doing this. It was like, gotcha to the audience. But there's also a part of me that was like, wait, I thought I was getting more out of this.
Exactly. There's one other thing that I want to talk about that I'm thinking about off the top of my head is the plane sequence. So apparently Christopher Nolan crashed a real plane in this thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that whole sequence is like for real. Like, when the plane rolls up in its thing and they're trying to get onto it. And, that was trippy because like everything's playing in reverse. So the plane goes in and then it goes back out, and the whole like disaster plays in reverse, and they're trying to get onto the plane so they can hijack it. It's crazy. But apparently all that was for real. I don't know how they do, like, some of the effects are pretty crazy because you're seeing like them catching bullets and stuff like that and fire, but it's in reverse. And there's actors like playing it, obviously, like are right there that are obviously playing their scenes in real time, real speed. So that was insane. And that was like really impressive. Like some of the most, talk about real sets, practical effects, but like that was actually impressive.
I mean, the man loves his planes. We've seen Inception and the beginning of The Dark Knight Rises, so
exactly.
Can't complain.
Oh, but started seeing that one coming.
You didn't see that coming?
Oh boy.
Oh man. Yeah, what's that Darth Vader quote? I was but the learner, but now I'm the master. It's like I guest hosted on your podcast, and now here we are, and the roles are reversed.
I am your but humble apprentice now.
And you're a Ben, so like the analogy is pretty fitting.
It is. It's perfect. It's perfect. I didn't even realize that.
All right. So, was there anything else you wanted to say about the movie before we move into final thoughts? Like anything that stands out?
I mean, I other than just kind of the specifics of what we talked about, I really did enjoy it. I think this is one of Christopher Nolan's best ones, and one of the best movies of the year. And that's saying much. We've had so many incredible movies this year, and you've talked about many of them on this podcast. Like, it's been a crazy year. So that's saying something when we're getting a movie like this that I would put easily in my top 5 movies of the year, if not all time. But it's just incredible that what they did with this. And, I even took my uncle to go see it last night. Like, it was that good.
Like, was your uncle engaged during the whole thing, or what was their theater crowd like?
There wasn't a ton of people, and he fell asleep 5 minutes into it. But then, I woke him up, and he was like, when it got to the plane crashing, he was into it. So, and that kept him awake for the rest of it. So I felt like maybe he didn't like it as much as I did, but I think he enjoyed it.
Nice. All right, I guess we can move into final thoughts and scores out of 10. I kind of feel like this one could have a couple or even 3 different scores. One score for the first half, the story proper, one score for the full length with the reverse stuff added, scoring that as a movie, and maybe even just scoring the whole thing just in terms of like memes and trolling and whatever. Like,
well, 10 out of 10 for memes. The memes have been incredible. So props to, and that's I mean, a little bit of credit to Christopher Nolan, but all the credit goes to all you meme lords out there, because we've been having a hell of a time with the Tenet memes, and didn't know I missed them that much.
nice. And so, like, what would your other scores be then?
Now, you said like judging it on like the story. The story, I would say 9 out of 10. I feel like it could have been a little clearer. I feel like it could have been a little bit tighter. It was a little convoluted, a little out there, and a little hard to follow at certain times. I think he was still all there. I think Christopher Nolan obviously put a ton of work into this and making it something that maybe none of us have really ever seen before, and that's saying something. We're the year 2020 now. We've seen a lot of things, and seeing a movie like this is pretty crazy, and the script is obviously magnificent. But it still could have. It was almost too smart for me, because I was like, okay, what's happening? What is this? What is this? What is this? I had to see it at least a couple more times to actually process it properly. And that really isn't. That's kind of an indictment of the movie. Like, you should be able to catch it the first time. So that's my only complaint, is that. But I think it's very close to perfect, and the story is great. And you said, what was it? Just kind of the overall?
Yeah. So, like, you could also say a score for, like, if you had to judge the movie with the reverse stuff added, like the second half.
I'm gonna give that maybe a 6. The movie was good in forward, but when they start getting meta with this reverse stuff, and you're trying to catch what people are saying, but they're saying it in reverse, like, it's good in the scenes when stuff are playing in reverse, because those scenes are now going forward because you're playing the movie in reverse. So that works, but it's only a handful of scenes that's happening. So for the rest of it, you're kind of confused, and it's hard to enjoy. So, in fact, I'll usually use that as a bathroom break when the credits roll and it starts going backwards. I'm like, okay, I'm tapping out for a bit.
Yeah, you could just use that whole second half as a bathroom break. Go to the hot dog stand, get your $20 popcorn bucket or whatever.
Right, so, your Tenet themed popcorn bucket that it fills itself now, I think. Because you get an empty popcorn bucket, and then throughout the movie it fills itself, because that's meta.
Yeah, that'd be great. So yeah, for me, I feel like if I were to judge the story, so comparing it to other like spy sort of spy related movies that have come out this year, like Black Widow and No Time to Die, I think I enjoyed this a bit more than those others. So for me, the story would be a 9 out of 10. But if I were to add like the half that's just the whole movie reversed, I think I'd give it like a 7 out of 10. But for the meme potential, and just for the fact that Christopher Nolan probably figured, you know what, I've been super pretentious with lots of my other movies. I'm just going to have fun and kind of get in my head, but also not, and just throw a curveball at everyone just for the hell of it. So I think for that particular aspect, I'd have to 10 out of 10 it.
I see what you did there.
Speaking of Tenet and palindromes, one of my favorite palindromes is "Go hang a salami, I'm a lasagna hog."
What did you just say? I was going to say one of my favorite palindromes is Taco Cat.
Oh, that's another good one.
Yeah, and that's very simple. And that's all I can handle after this movie, because I can't fathom anything more complicated than that.
Yeah, I only know about the one I just said because like one of the special features I watched for the Twin Peaks movie from a while back. But yeah, they're like a couple backwards talking characters, and now like there are these spirits in this place that's otherworldly, and they speak forward, but the way that their dialogue was recorded so that it would sound weird was that the actors would record their dialogue backwards phonetically, and then in the edit they'd play it forward so that you know the words as well. They still have subtitles, but it would sound weird because like they were originally said backwards and you're hearing it correctly, but like it's still in reverse. So
yeah, I think I've heard things like that before. Like it's really like when they talk backwards, when they're playing it forwards, just messes with your head too much.
yeah, I'm messing with my head just talking about it. Like, all right. I know we did plugs at the beginning, but I don't know if you want to like mention some stuff that like you talked about in a couple of the things that you plugged.
Yeah, so I guess we can mention, we've had a lot of interesting stuff over there. We just got done doing Ghostbusters, which was a lot of fun. And over on IPC, I should say. I should actually mention the name of the podcast. IPC, we talk about literally everything, kind of what you do, but
better.
I was going to say you're better, because you're more interesting. This is the more interesting podcast. But let's just call it even. We're both interesting. We're both good. We don't. This isn't the competition, all right, guys?
Right. Even Steven. But we did get finished with Ghostbusters, and then we talked about literally everything. We did a while back. We did Disney movies. We do top 5 episodes every once in a while, and it's a lot of fun. Just go check that out. And then for Star Wars Underworld, we're talking about all the latest stuff. We got the the new trailers and whatever else is coming out at the time. Who knows what we're going to be talking about next week? But check that out. Yeah, I mean, there's always a lot of news, especially with all the stuff coming out. But yeah, go ahead and check that out. And Ben, thank you once again for joining me on this episode.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for having me. This was an absolute pleasure, and I can't wait to do it again.
All right. And listeners, if you want to hear my plugs again and the email, just rewind to the beginning. I'm kind of tired and lazy, so... All right. The next episode after this one would be Jungle Cruise. Without further delay, have a good day.
Your friend is strong and particular for the rest of the or not for the
You think we was my voice that angel? I'll see you in the first busy room of our lost madness illness. Now, this is now far away. Now, sing if you fit. You say that we very the other made. Yeah, here it is. It's so going. It's very strange on the